Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Kerbal Space Program career mode. Where we left off last time, we had started out our space program and got to the point where we managed to shuttle 4 tourists into orbit and back. Pretty good couple hours of work. So in this stream, hopefully, we're going to manage to get onto one of the moons, either the moon, M-U-N, or Minmus, and that's about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and pick up our Twitch career mode here. This is going to be right where we left off at the end of the last stream. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to upgrade my mission control. And the reason for this is because now that I have an upgraded tracking station and upgraded mission control, we should have access to maneuver nodes. And maneuver nodes are going to be very, very important getting just about anywhere. And that's something that we'll go through as we do this. So let's look at what we have open to us. So ferry 3 tourists safely to their destination. Well, we did this last time. So I think what I would like to do is try to do something that's going to get me a little bit more science so that I can unlock some more parts and hopefully make it a little bit easier to get over to the moon. So what are we at? What would they like us to do here? To perform the test, use run test option, and it wants altitude 16,000 to 22,000 and speed 1,000 to 1,300 meters per second. So I think this is very possible, since we basically always carry heat shield with us. And then it wants us to test a radial decoupler splashdown at Kerbal. Okay, that doesn't seem like a problem. I'll just put a radial decoupler on my pod and I'll activate it once we've splashed down. Now, what else can we do? See, the parachutes always give me problems because the speed is very, very low at that altitude. So you can't really do this on re-entry, or at least I've never managed it. So it wants us to haul this into flight 800 meters per second at 40,000. Well, let's see if we can manage this one too. Okay, so we'll pick up these 3 contracts. I'm going to go cycle through the completion rewards from last time when we got the tourists back safely. And we're going to build a rocket. And the hope is that when we do this, we can collect enough science to unlock, I think, landing. Advanced construction would be useful for the fairings. Heavy rocketry propulsion systems. So unfortunately, it hasn't yet given me a contract to go to the moon. But let's see if we complete one more mission, if maybe we can get the game to give us one. Okay. So let's look at our contracts here. Wants us to test a heat shield. Okay, well, that's easy enough. I'm going to put a Science Junior at the bottom of this. And actually, I'm going to do 2 pods, and I'm going to bring a scientist with us this time. I'm going to put a nose cone on the top of this, and a heat shield on the bottom of this. And then I'm going to put 2 of the goo containers, 2 of the thermostats, a Kerbal engineer module, and then 2 radial mount parachutes. Okay, so we got ourselves a nice little pod here. Put a decoupler. Now another thing is, it wants us to test the TT38K radial decoupler splashdown. So I am going to put a radial decoupler here for us to test. And then what else does it want? And it wants a hammer solid rocket booster in flight above Kerbal. So how I intend to do that is I'm going to put a fuel tank here. Kind of the standard orbital maneuvering setup that we were using yesterday. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap 2 of these boosters, which are the hammer. 2 of these RT-10s on the side of this. Now normally you wouldn't take a solid rocket booster and use it as anything but the first stage because they're very inefficient in vacuum, and it's much better to use liquid fuel engines for the upper stages of your rocket. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and have these here so that I can test them once we get up into the 40,000 altitude range. Alright, we're going to rename this the Experimenter, that's basically what we're going to do. And what was the other one? The heat shield. The heat shield is going to want me to be going faster, but I'm going to try to test the heat shield on the way back down. Alright, so we can basically discount the delta V from these because we're going to fire them at a very odd place. I need a decoupler. I need 2 fuel tanks. If I put an engine on that, where does that leave me in terms of delta V? So that only gives us 2,000 delta V. That's not going to be nearly enough. So what I think I'm going to do, well, that's actually very troubling because we're not going to even have a greater than 1 thrust to weight ratio. Okay. So new plan. New plan. We're going to run 4 of these all at the same time. Now, remember yesterday I went to such great effort to get the struts, and you're going to see why this is so important. Because this is going to allow me to build pretty reasonable rocket here. That'll work. And I will strut these together. Alright, so now that's got a nice high delta V. And I basically want, well, probably gonna fire those together. Okay. So that's got a nice high delta V. I think we're going to want to do this that way. So what I've set up now is so that I can fire these without this stage having detached itself, and I think in reality that's going to be the right ordering. But you can always fire parts with the right-click menu if it turns out that I was wrong about the staging. So below this, I think we're just going to try to do this with solids. Now, where does that leave us? So we're going to put our experimental radial decoupler in the last stage. We got our 2 parachutes. That's going to break away all the engines. That's our orbital maneuvering engine. That decouples everything. Here are our test boosters. Here's our big liquid stage. What is this decoupler? Oh yeah, okay. Want that there. Here's our big solid stage. Got enough thrust to weight ratio. I think this is going to do it. Now, even if we don't get into orbit, we should probably be able to execute most of our tests, and hopefully we'll pick up some science as we go. But at least this is a good example of how you can kind of glue together a bunch of these experimental contracts and collect a bunch of money and hopefully a little bit of science all at the same time. Now, the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to bring Bob Kerman along. And if we make it into orbit, I'm going to show you how you can use a scientist to reset your experiments, because that's going to be something very important going forward. So we'll save the experimenter, and then we'll go ahead and I'm going to let Valentina fly this one, since she has now respawned after I crashed her into the sea. And oh, one more thing I want to do is I want to add some struts at the bottom here, because otherwise I think we're going to get a bit of a wobble. We don't want that. There, that should give us, everything should be nice and stable. Okay, well, let's hope for the best. Alright, stability control on. Valentina is ready to take this one into space, and here we go. Now, I didn't put any fins on this, so it's going to be difficult to get this to do much more than go straight up while these solids are still falling. But that's alright. So we're going to drop this down here so we can take a good look. So 16,000. I think we'll go target this one first. 40,000 and speed 800 to 880. Again, we're kind of drifting off of straight up, but it's fine. It's pretty controlled, and we're going to ditch the solids in a second. Alright, so far so good. Alright, our altitude. See, we don't need much thrust to keep our speed going up. I think, actually, we're going to hit this a little more now. Alright, so we need to stay below 880. And the next time I hit space is going to fire. Oop, oop, oop. Alright, that's going to go green in a sec. Once 800 to 880 meters per second. Oh, surface speed of 800 to 880. Well, that is unfortunate, because we did not make that. Alright, well, we're going to head to orbit anyways. I'm just going to let things go. Oh god, what did they destroy? Doesn't appear to be anything important. Well, that is unfortunate that we screwed that one up. But let's go ahead and get ourselves into an orbit here, and then we'll see what we can do based on how much fuel we have left. Now this is going to demonstrate one of the things you have to be careful about with the career mode. This rocket cost about 25,000 funds to launch, and if I don't complete at least one of these contracts, that's going to be a pretty serious blow to my finances here. Because you can see I can really only launch one or two more of these. Now some of the contracts will give you advances, which will help quite a bit, but if they don't, you sometimes have to go and find creative ways to get some financing to be able to launch your missiles. So we're still burning. We're not in an orbit yet. You can see our periapsis is still negative, but it's coming up pretty quick. All right, so 12, 20, 30, 40, 50. Alright, so we're in a decent orbit, but we've used up most of our fuel. We don't have any science that we can do right now, but I still want to get something useful out of this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn SAS off, and I'm going to time accelerate until we are on the sunny side of the planet, so I can do this in daylight. Okay, so let's just pretend for a minute that I was able to get science out of this. So I'll open up the materials bay. Okay, right, 5.5 science. Can I get anything here? 0.5, whatever. Science is science, I suppose. That's truly useless. And thermometer? No. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Bob Kerman and... oh, darn. I screwed this up in so many ways. So you need to have upgraded the astronaut complex to be able to do EVAs. Well, this is trouble. I may end up having to do a space tourist mission just to get the money to be able to do this. So let's go ahead and deorbit. Hopefully we will get these two contracts. Again, see my periapsis has gone quite negative, now in an unstable orbit. It was going to want me to be doing 1,000 to 1,300 at 16,000 feet. I don't know. It's hard to judge how fast I'm going to be going when I hit 22,000 meters, but let's hope it's going to be over 1,000 meters per second. Over 1,100 meters per second. So I'm going to go ahead and ditch my engine. Turn SAS back on. And time accelerate till I hit the atmosphere. Alright, so I'm going to point retrograde. Put my heat shield on the front of my craft. Oh. Wow, this is going to be doubly troublesome because I think I'm going to land on ground instead of the ocean. Okay, so let's see if we can get these two to go green, and at least this won't be a total flub of a mission. There's the run test button that it was talking about. I hope I start slowing down. I'm also a little worried about whatever's heating up, but I use this design pretty often, so I'm not too concerned. Alright, start slowing down. Oh, well, I lost something. Looks to be one of the science pods. Now, part of this is because I was not doing a great job of keeping retrograde here. Even slightly off, and you can run into some serious trouble. There, got it. Alright. So at least we got one contract complete. That pretty much paid for the flight. Not as efficient as I would have liked, but nobody died. So, I'm going to call it a victory. It's also going to give Valentina some experience. Oh, I can't take a temperature scan, though. And yeah, so what blew off was one of these goo containers, and I was paying too much attention to the contract and not enough attention to my angle of entry. Alright, so I can deploy my chutes. Here they go. It does not look like I'm going to splash down, so I do not think that this test is going to work, but that one doesn't require a lot of special setup, so I think we're going to be alright. I'm just going to go ahead and time accelerate this to the ground, and then we'll recover this one. See what other contracts we can go and pick up. Now here's another useful trick. I'm going to turn SAS off once I have the parachutes, because it was ripping through my battery trying to keep the pod upright. And once you're kind of dangling by the parachutes, there's not a ton of reason to keep it on. Alright, we're down. So let's go ahead and recover this and see what we did manage. We get a little bit of science, and we got enough funds that we didn't lose money on this trip. Also not bad, 20 science. Doesn't let us unlock anything, but we got 3,000 back, so we have, you know, we have 71,000 science, and both of our pilots advanced to level 1, so that's really good. That's going to help things along. Now, another thing I noticed is that we didn't get maneuver nodes. Oh, and it's because I have not upgraded the tracking station. I thought I had done this last time, and I hadn't. Once I do this, then you'll get patch conics, and since you have the upgrade to the mission control, you're going to get maneuver nodes. Alright, fly by the moon. This is what I was looking for. So this is how a real space program would do it. When NASA did the Apollo program, they didn't land on the moon on the first trip. The first thing they did was fly by it. So we're going to try to do this, and we're going to try to do this without maneuver nodes. And how we're going to manage this is we kind of know how much delta V is going to be involved. And I know that because of my handy delta V subway map. And the delta V subway map, you can see, shows us the amount of delta V that's going to be required to get to the moon. So it's going to take 3,400 to get into orbit. Then we're going to need, I'll show you the legend here. To get into an intercept, which is all that we really require here, it's going to take another 860. I'm going to have enough of a safety margin so that we can make sure that we can get back. So I'll probably make sure that we have about 5,400 delta V on this craft. Now, I'm not going to bother building a lander because we don't intend to land. But I will make sure that we're going to at least be able to fly by and then land back on Kerbal. So we've got these other contracts active. I'm going to bring a radial decoupler this time. I'm not going to worry too much about the SRBs. We'll pick that contract up at some other time. We still have 425 days, and you'll find that's pretty much an eternity in this game. Okay. So here we go. Now, this time, go ahead and create a new ship. I want to bring 3 astronauts with me. I definitely want a pilot and a scientist, and I'm going to bring, well, let's just go with those 2. I definitely want a pilot and a scientist. I want a scientist to be able to, actually, here's what I'm going to do. I liked my pod from before. So this is another good thing that you can do. I'm going to load up the experimenter, and I'm going to strip away these things, and I'm going to strip away. Actually, do I? No, that's only 3,200. 5,000. So I may just modify this ship very slightly in order to get this done. The only thing that we really need is more maneuvering power in vacuum. And I wonder, it still gives me tons of thrust, 5,600 delta V. I think for a flyby, that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna modify these struts a little bit to come in a bit higher. And I'm going to call this the Moon Flyby. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think we're going to do all right. Because that is a lot of fuel for that very efficient engine. Now, I am going to add some wings this time because it's very important when you do this. When you're going to the moon, because its orbital plane is the same as Kerbin's, you're really going to want to be in an equatorial orbit. So I'm going to put some wings to make sure that we can control this thing even when the solid boosters are being used. And then beyond that, we're going to get thrust vectoring, and with the liquid fuel engine, that should make everything go just fine. Okay. All right. 0.9. I wonder, can I get away with a little bit of extra fuel? Stages. Of course. some struts here. Whoops. Looks good. Now, can I still, yeah, 1.78, 2.2. Okay, that gives me an even bigger safety margin, so I'm happier with that. Okay, well, let's see if we can manage it with this rocket. Now, you can take a look at the contract. Followed by the moon. All right. Now, I didn't do two things there that I really should have. One was check the staging, so solid, solid. Liquid, liquid, that detached all the liquid, next engine, liquid, parachutes, decoupler. We've got Jebediah, Kerbal, so no, we need to go back to vehicle assembly because I did not put my scientist, Bob, in the second seat. All right. So now that we've got that sorted out, all right, SAS on, throttle to full. So I'm going to try to get us tilted into the direction that I want right off the bat. I'm going to keep the rocket from drifting the way that it did last time. So I want to tilt over to what looks to be the right on the screen, the 90 degrees. And that is so that the orbit I get is pretty much equatorial, because the space center is positioned along the equator. And so if you go due east or due west, you're going to end up being in a nice equatorial orbit, which is going to put you in a really good position to get to the moon. Now, this would be easiest if I had maneuver nodes, but I'm going to show you how to do it without them. Because oh god, that's true. Okay. Alright, well, that did not go well, but I think we have enough of a safety factor that we're going to be able to manage it. Oh god. Okay, well, this is turning into a catastrophe, but I think I can right the ship. Back on the trajectory that we want. That's probably cost us a lot of fuel, and I'm a little concerned that we're not going to make it now, but let's see. I'll throttle down a little bit here, because you don't really want to be going so fast that your ship is flaming inside the atmosphere. And I'm actually going to go ahead and cut my engines. You can see our apoapsis is 86,000, so we're going to get out of the atmosphere easily. And then I'm going to have a little bit of fuel left from this first stage to help circularize our orbit. And I think we're still going to have enough delta V left to make this work. So we've got 2400 delta V in that final orbital maneuvering stage, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be enough to get us where we want and back. Now I'm kind of glad I brought a safety margin. Felt like it was way too much fuel, but I think it's going to end up saving us. So we're in space, we're about a minute away from our apoapsis. I'm going to get this closer to about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go ahead and burn. And I'm going to burn all this fuel, and then I'm going to switch to the orbital maneuvering engine. Now, I'm just guessing at this 30 seconds, but let's go ahead. Now, that explosion was just the firing of the new engine blowing up pieces of the ones I'm leaving behind. It's really no big deal. Because they're just going to burn up in the atmosphere anyways. Okay, so let's watch our delta V. We know we need 850 to get there, and we won't need 850 to get back, but I'd like to have as close to 1700 delta V left as possible. I think we're going to be all right. Now, the one unfortunate fact about this engine is that it doesn't produce electricity. So we do have to watch our batteries. Now, unlike a robotic pod, it doesn't really take any power to keep the Kerbals alive. So we should be fine. We should be fine. We don't need batteries, and we don't have access to solar panels yet, so... Alright. Our periapsis is coming up nicely. 530. Okay. So our orbit's a little elliptical, but it's definitely solid. You can see the plane is really nice and equatorial. Now, there's a bit of a trick to getting to the moon. And what it is you wait until the moon rises over the horizon as you're orbiting. So we're going to go from left to right here. And when the moon comes into view, you start burning prograde, and that will extend your orbit out this way until you get to the moon. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the moon. Oh, I can't do that because I don't have the upgraded tracking station yet. Okay, so we're going to do this burn in the orbital view, but we're not going to need to do it for a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off SAS and time accelerate at a good clip until we start to get closer to moonrise here. Now let's get ourselves pointed prograde. And maneuvering does take batteries, so just keep that in mind. So we'll get ourselves pointed prograde. And we know we need to add about 850 delta V. So you can see we're at, 2200-ish. We're going to want to go to, okay, let's call it 2250. We're going to want to go out to 3100 meters per second. And when we do that, you'll see our orbit will form a nice ellipse, and hopefully we will get an intercept with the moon. And if we don't, we can always do a mid-course correction and make sure that we actually intercept with it. So let's speed this up. And we're just waiting for the moon to pop over the horizon. There it is. All right, so now we're going to set ourselves prograde. We're going to start burning. So, watch what's going to happen here. So you can see our apoapsis is getting pushed out, and it's going to go to a point which should be about where the moon will be when our spacecraft gets there. So you see the moon is at an altitude of 11 million meters. So far we're at 1 million, but this is going to start moving quicker as it gets further out. 2 million. $5 million, 6 million, 7, so we're actually going to start throttling down. 10. So this is 11.4, 11.250. So we're going to see that that's about the right apoapsis, but we're actually going to need to adjust our orbit slightly in order to make this work. But we're going to do that about here. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up. And you're going to see the moon is making its way there, we're making our way there. And we are way out. I can take a crew report. Okay, so we're going to do a few things. First off, we're going to adjust our orbit up. We're going to do this very slightly, but just until we see things line up with the plane of the moon. There, I'm happy with that. Now, this is going to go to 11,400. The moon's at 11,400. So the question is going to be whether we're actually going to catch it. And it looks like we may be a little ahead. But let's go ahead and time accelerate and see what's going to happen. Now we're going to slow down as we get to the top of this orbit. Ah, there, we actually did it. Okay. Now once we have patch conics, I'm going to show you how that's really supposed to look, but we have done it. We have flown by the moon. Now, unfortunately, we are on a collision course, and we can't have that. So, we're going to need to adjust our orbit here pretty quickly. But we got 88,000, way more than the rocket cost us to build. We got some science, ton of prestige. Now that we're in the moon's sphere of influence, we're going to take a ton more science, mystery goo observation, material study, and crew report. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to take our orbit away from the moon. So I'm going to tilt us over here. Go to orbital view. Fire up the thing, because what I want to do is I want to fly by the moon. I don't want to crash into it. Okay, so we have a periapsis. This is going to get us 34 kilometers past the moon. We're going to get a gorgeous flyby, and then we're going to see where we end up in an orbit of Kerbal. We still have enough delta V that we should be able to bring our periapsis back into the atmosphere and get ourselves home. All right. So I'm just going to time accelerate through this. Going to get our nice moon flyby. Here we go. Look at that. Now, since we're on an escape trajectory of the moon, we're eventually going to end up back in an orbit of Kerbal here. So we're escaping the moon sphere of influence. Okay, so we have a periapsis of 4 million kilometers. Now, obviously, that isn't going to work. Now, in real life, none of this would work because you'd want to do this in such a way that your astronauts didn't spend all this time out in space. But the most efficient way to do this is to go out to the apoapsis and then bring the periapsis in. The other alternative is that we burn ourselves to bring our orbit closer in. So let's see if that's a viable solution. So we're halfway there. Million meters. And 4, 3. All right, so that's inside the atmosphere. We can actually take it all the way to there. All right, so we did have enough delta V for that, but now we're good. You'll see that I'm going to time accelerate, and we're just going to come right into the atmosphere of Kerbal and be able to land this thing. Now, let's go back here and see where we are. 475. Okay, so now we're just at the edge of space. I'm going to go ahead and slow down with whatever remaining fuel we have. Jettison the engines. Try to do a better job of staying fixed on retrograde this time. Up left and right. Have we lost our parachutes? No, we have not. We did lose some science, that's unfortunate. We have not lost our parachutes. Now that was a very, very, very steep entry, and I'm hoping that it's going to be survivable. Looks like it will be. Probably would have been wise to come in shallower, but turn SAS off, and we're going to splash down and hopefully get to complete this contract this time. Whew, that was close. Alright, we're just going to let this fall into the ocean. Going to bring back a ton of science. Got tons more funds, which is going to let us upgrade some facilities and prep for our next mission. Well done, Bob and Jebediah. Alright, we are down. I am going to activate this decoupler. Decouple. There it is. That did not somehow complete that contract. Oh, darn. Well, apparently you had to activate it through the staging sequence. So this game has some ideas sometimes. Alright, so I'm going to flip me over. I'm going to do an EVA report. Oh, there's actually no science to be gained there. And I'm going to go ahead and recover the vessel. There, 79 science. That's amazing. So that's great. Got a little bit from what we recovered, not very much. XP for both of those pilots. Got another world's first for gathering scientific data from the moon. I'm going to update the tracking station. You're going to see how big of a difference that makes. And I really would like to update the astronaut complex. Well, let's go do this first. Okay. So, heavy rocketry we don't need yet. Propulsion systems we don't need yet. Fuel. So this is going to give us fuel ducts, which allows us to build very efficient asparagus stage rockets. But I think we're going to leave that for another day. This gives us some different decouplers, some band adapters. It's kind of useful. Don't need that one right now. Precision control, lander can, hitchhiker storage container, the barometer. So I'm going to take this one, and the reason is that the hitchhiker storage container is going to allow us to kind of farm these tourism missions pretty easily. And I also would like the Presmat barometer because that's going to give us a bunch more science. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Doesn't give us a ton more parts, but that's okay. Now, let's see what contracts. Orbit the moon. Well, that's the next logical step, so we're definitely going to take this one. Where do these tourists want to go? Orbit around Kerbal, not helpful. Orbit around Kerbal. Orbit around Kerbal. Alright, now there's also this one. So these temperature surveys, basically, you end up modifying your orbit until you get into the particular sectors that they want, and then taking a temperature scan. This is probably a good one as well. It's pretty profitable. I have to orbit the moon anyways, so I'm going to take this one as well. Okay, so now what about this one? I'm going to pick up this because this is essentially the same, and it really is just doing a bunch of orbital maneuvering around the moon. And since we have to orbit the moon anyways, we might as well go and do it. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to upgrade the astronaut complex, because EVAs are going to allow us to go out and reset science experiments, which I know I've been talking up for quite some time now. So now, flight planning available means we get maneuver nodes. Patch conics mean we'll be able to see things like orbits and intersects, and it's just going to make everything a lot easier. So let's go in here. Now, You probably noticed that this thing did not have the best launch in the world. So I'm going to take everything below this, throw it away, and we're going to build something else. Now, I'm going to add barometers. And I know that these pods blew up last time on us, but it's not going to matter a great deal because I'm going to steal all their data before we get to that point. Similarly with the barometers and the temperature sensors. So this stuff can all blow off. I'm going to get rid of this because we... Oh no, that's right. I still need that one. So we're going to leave that one there. We're going to swap out Valentina for Jebediah so that she can get the points for going. Bob is still going to come along to reset all our experiments. And now we're going to build a rocket. So we're going to need to do a ton of orbital maneuvering around the moon. So in order to do that, I think I'm going to build this hilarious thing. And this is going to have a lot of delta V in it. Double the delta V of just a single engine. Now, how much more do I gain? Oops. By going to 6. Do I actually lose? No, I gain another 300 delta V by going to 6. Okay, so we're going to go with 6. We're going to strut everything together. This is going to be our orbital maneuvering system. And now we're going to build a rocket to launch this thing into space. And so I want to make sure that these engines, I don't turn them on until we have to do the moon burn. So I'm going to put a lot of booster under this. What's that? 1.69. Great. I'm going to strut all these together. And I didn't bother with the middle, which is fine. Because it's got a high enough thrust-to-weight ratio that this stage is going to work just fine. Now, this is an expensive rocket, but we're going to complete a lot of contracts if we can manage this. So let's go ahead and do another stage below this, and I'm hoping that solids are going to be able to pull this off. 1.54. Okay, they are. So what does this have? At ASL it has 250 kilonewtons of thrust. How much thrust can I get out of liquid fueled engines? 200. So 168. Okay, so these will be more powerful. They just don't burn for very long. So I would like to see this 2900 number closer to 34. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of decouplers. And I'm actually going to add a second set of these. We're going to go nuts. so there. Now, I got just enough off the launch pad to make this workable. So I'm going to strut all these together. I'm going to strut all these together. Zoom out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. At the top and bottom. I'm going to put wings on it. I probably don't need wings there. Yeah, the game will let me do it. Not sure those are really gonna work though. Well, I think I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to hope that that's got enough control surface to be able to control this thing. So what's going to happen is I'm going to fire the outside 6. I'm going to blow those off. I'm going to fire the inside 6. I'm going to blow those off. Then I'm going to fire the 6 liquid engines. I'm going to blow those off. And then hopefully by then we're going to be in an orbit. And we'll switch to the orbital maneuvering engines. We have our parachutes. And all of this is going to give us a lot of delta V. Over 3,000 delta V to play around with to get to the moon and back, and to do all the orbital maneuvering that's going to be involved. So if we... Uh-oh. That is trouble. Alright. So we can't launch this. Because it is too heavy. And we need to drop 27 tons. So that's probably... Okay, so we're going to be able to do 20 more tons. I think I can fit 6 of these. No. 2.5 tons, too much. Yeah, that took basically nothing. Okay, so where can I drop 2.5 tons? What weighs 2.5 tons? This weigh almost nothing. It's nothing. Well, these are not going to do it. Okay, so this changes the game on us a little bit, but it is what it is. How much delta V would this actually add? Well, 15 meters per second is nothing to sneeze at. If I do this just right, these will actually burn. For about the same time. Alright, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it like that. I'm gonna take these wings, I'm gonna drop them down here. And we're gonna hope that when we get to the moon, that is enough delta V to do all of these. We should get at least a few. And this thing is gonna look absolutely crazy when it blasts off. We'll call this moon orbit. And it is time to launch. Alright, SAS on, speed full. Bob and Valentina, ready to orbit the moon. Now look at the fire coming out the bottom of that. Now again, we're going to try to keep this in a nice equatorial orbit. Nice slow roll. Over to, I guess, yaw. Over to pitch. Done. We're going to slowly bend over to 90 degrees. We're going to get there by about 12,000. Solids did their job. Now we're on to the liquid engines, which have a ton of thrust left in them. Just gonna go a little faster than we are. Okay. So we're at 45. Where we want to be from an inclination perspective. Doesn't look like we're going to topple over wildly this time, which is a big improvement over last time. Our apoapsis is gaining momentum, so I'm actually going to throttle down a little, because I don't want us to get going too fast inside the atmosphere. Into space. Wait till it gets to 80, and then I'm going to cut our engines. I'm going to save this last little bit of fuel to help us circularize our orbit. Now, if we were going to land on the moon, we actually don't need nearly the delta V that we've brought in this top stage. But because we're going to have to do a lot of changes to our orbit in order to satisfy these contracts, that's why I've gone to all the trouble of launching this massive amount of fuel up there. I think I'm going to start burning a little earlier this time, too. up exactly as we've done every other time. All these engines, which are allowing us to push this rocket very fast. Alright, so we have ourselves 2200 delta V. So that's quite a lot. That is quite a lot. Now, this time, you'll notice that our orbit has turned blue, and we can do an awful lot to make this easier. So, first off, we can set targets. Now, when you set a target, you're going to get an ascending and descending node. And basically, these are the places that you want to do any plane alignment maneuvers, similar to the one that I did to lift our orbit up. So, if you're going to Minmus, for example, which you can see has it's this purple orbit, is quite inclined. You would want to use the ascending and descending nodes as the place to tilt your orbit over to have them line up. Now, in our case, you can see we're rotating around the planet in this direction. I'm going to want to... Well, when's it going to happen? Alright, so I'm going to use a maneuver node to do this. So I'm just going to kind of guess that it works out here. And I'm going to click Add Maneuver. And then this is going to give you the maneuver node editor. Now you can move this node. The other thing that you can do is I'm using my mouse wheel to add a prograde burn here, and you can see that's going to get me an encounter with the moon. Now I can adjust this so that I get a close encounter with the moon. That's going to put me in, and so I'm going to try to do this in such a way that it uses less delta V. I'm just mouse wheeling around and moving the node, trying to get what I want. I speed this up a little bit. What's going to happen? That is a collision. Alright, that's going to put me in a fawn. Okay, we're back after that little bit of a glitch. So I've decided that I am going to put my maneuver kind of like this. I'm going to tweak the... Okay, so here we go. This is even better. So that's going to give me a moon periapsis of 100,000. Alright, that's actually going to have us colliding with the moon. So I'm happy with that. We'll adjust that orbit a little bit when we get out there. Alright. So this maneuver, when I pull up the nav ball, you'll notice that I have an extra icon. It's this blue one right here. So the blue, it's going to tell me that in 27 minutes I need to do a burn of 32 seconds. And that assumes max throttle. So I'm going to put myself on that. Now, unlike the prograde and retrograde markers, this one isn't going to move as you orbit around the planet. So I can go ahead and time accelerate. (16, 15, 14 minutes). So we're going to time accelerate until we get close to this node. Okay, so 32-second burn. So obviously I can't do all this delta V right at the node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this in half, and I'm going to want to start my burn with 16 seconds before the node and finish at 16 seconds after the node. That should give you a pretty close approximation of this orbit that the maneuver node is showing you. So I'm going to wait until it gets to 16, and then I'm going to hit full throttle, and I'm not going to move my orientation at all, except to correct it to be close to this. So 18, 17, 16. Just touch it up a little bit. You can see it's going to count down the delta V. It's required. My orbit is moving out as expected. This blue marker staying where it is. Now, this might start to move around when I get close to the end of the burn. Let's see, it's already drifting a little. I'm actually going to throttle down as I get close to the end of this. Okay, so right now I am on a collision course. The dotted line was your projected, this line is your actual. I'm going to bring it a little further so that hopefully we get a periapsis around the moon. There we go. And I am happy with that. So I've gotten rid of the node, and then this is actually what my orbit is going to be. Now you can see right now, I think I'm scheduled to collide with the moon. But another nice thing that you get out of this is that you can get the game to help you do some warping. So you could warp. Let's warp to the ascending node as a start. So it's going to warp you as fast as it can. Now, one thing I have noticed is that it warps you as fast as it could in whatever orientation you were when you started. But now that I'm at a much higher velocity, it's actually going to let me warp faster. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to start this warp again. You see it's going to do it at 10,000 times speed, and I'm going to get there awfully quick. Now, if I wanted to do a plane correction, this would be the place. But I'm pretty happy with my plane, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to warp to the SOI margin. And the SOI is the sphere of influence. So this is where you're going to transfer from an orbit around Kerbal to an orbit around the moon. And okay, so I'm in an orbit around the moon. I'm going to have a periapsis of 3,700 meters, which is fine. I'm going to add a maneuver node here. And this is how I'm going to do my circularization. So I'm going to want to burn retrograde to slow down and pull it into an orbit. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to get into a nice circular orbit around the moon's equator. So that would have me landing on it. Well, actually crashing into it. So there's a nice mod called Precise Node, and I'm going to try to have it for all of the future videos. And it basically helps you do this process better. Okay, so that's going to give me 38, 37. Needs 278 delta V. I have tons more than that. An 8-second burn. So I'm going to go ahead and get myself oriented to this. Now I got an hour to wait, but the game's going to help me with this too, because if I click here, it'll help me warp to the next maneuver, and it'll give you about a 30-second or a minute buffer. So it gave me a minute. So I want to start 4 seconds before the node, so I can actually time warp a little bit more than this. So 7, 6, 5, 4. I want to bring that down just a little bit. 41, 37. All right. 39, 36. I don't think I'm going to do much better than that. All right, I'm in a circular orbit of the moon. Contract complete. Now for some science. Pressure scan. All right. Crew report. Great. Material study. Great. Mystery goo observation. Great. Temperature scan. Great. So now I'm going to show you how to reset experiments. So I'm going to go here to my Nice little craft. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get my scientist, Bob, out. So I'm going to do an EVA. Now he's hanging on for dear life. I'm going to grab an EVA report while I'm here. Now, what I can now do is I can collect the data and I can restore the experiment. And now I could actually do that experiment again once I get to a different position that it would allow me to do it. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the data from the pressure scan. I'm going to take the data from the thermometer. And I'm going to climb myself up. And I'm going to collect the data and restore this as well. And you can see I've let go of the ship. So I want to be able to maneuver. The suits have RCS, which is nice. Oh God. This can sometimes be a little frustrating. There, now back inside. You can see it's put all this data into the command pod. And these experiments are all raring to go. So this is how, if you intend to fly to a bunch of different places on one mission, you can go and collect the same experiments over and over again. And that's why you take a scientist with you. Okay, so we've covered that. We got another milestone, spacewalk in orbit of the moon. Great. That EVA report is false because we already have it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start planning. So first off, I want to take a look at how I'm going to get home. So to get home, no, this is not what I want. You're going to want to escape the moon's sphere of influence. End up with a nice periapsis at Kerbal. Now that would be just great. Now how much delta V is that going to take? So that's going to take around 300 delta V. So I should just keep that number in mind. So I have about 800. Probably want to save about 5 just in case. And I've got about 800 delta V to play with. So that's great. So forget about that maneuver for now. Now let's look at these sites that they want me to go after. So this it wants me to take crew reports and temperature scans. So the temperature scans are right where I am right now. So hopefully I just need to get low enough to be able to capture these. So what does it want me to do? Temperature scans. Sorry, that's not it. Measure the temperature in spaceflight above 10,200 meters, above 8,400 meters, above 10,600 meters. So I'm high enough. And now I just need to get there. So I'm going to use the warp 2 again. I'm going to warp to here. It's going to warp me around the moon to the other side. And it's going to stop. Okay, so I'm going to open this and I'm going to hope that I get one of these basically as I go by it. Or actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a maneuver and I'm going to bend my orbit just a little bit. To do this a little better. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm hoping now that I'm gonna get this. Now you'll usually get a message entering blah 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 blah. Go ahead and try it. Log temperature. Collecting survey data. Perfect. So I got one of them. Okay. Now I have another temperature scanner. So I'm going to want to bend my orbit again. I'm going to do it more efficiently this time. Bend my orbit again so that I end up kind of over this one. I'm going to add a little bit because I don't want to get too high. That would be too low. Okay, so I got another 3-second burn. I'm going to warp to it. Now I'm going to watch this because remember, I want about 500 to get back. So I can do 3 or 4 more of these. Just time accelerate a little bit. Okay. That should be good enough. Warp there again. And the other thing I do want to keep an eye on here is battery. Okay, I'm entering the sector. Let's hope that I can take a temperature scan here. Oh, I missed it. Tons of that. Okay. Alright, well, we're going to try that again. I'm going to do one more orbit. Now you saw that time it showed us, you know, entering sector blah blah blah. L5Q. So we're waiting. Hopefully we're going to get this message again, but if not, once we get about parallel to it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try it. I'll try it with the other one then. No? Now this is where it can get a little frustrating. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more maneuver. And my hope is that try to correct this a little bit. What have I done? Because if you don't like that, then maybe you'll like that a bit more. All right, that's going to take 46 delta V. Needs to be in 39 minutes. Go ahead and warp. Okay, so where's that gonna do it? Actually, I think we need to go a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna warp to there. Alright, game. I literally don't know that I can do any better this time. Ah, there we go. So, which one is it? Oh, this one. Log temperature, log temperature. Got it. Alright. So we still have about 300 delta V. I'm going to go try to get this last one. Do it on another orbit. That's a bit much. Okay. I'm going to retrograde this. Stop being so high. Okay, I'm very happy with that. I'm going to warp to the next maneuver. And so there might be smarter, more efficient ways to do this, but this is the way I've always figured it out. So I'm going to line it up. Now I'm going to do this burn slowly like I did the last one, because I think doing it precisely is going to be the most important thing. You can see that I actually did not, my maneuver node is not perfect. close this. I'm going to warp to there. Now, before I do all this, I'm going to have Bob get back out. He's going to take the data and take the data, then board back in. I probably have a duplicate experiment. That's not a big deal. I'm entering the sector. I'm going to log the temperature. And you can see that I have completed another contract. Okay, so 726 delta V. I don't think I'm going to have enough to get all three. So I think I'm going to go for one. What does it want me to do? Crew report. I'm going to try to get this last one. Start burning now. Hopefully I get there. I still have enough delta V left. Okay, this is going to be the only one that I think I can manage. Hopefully it'll tell me soon that I'm entering. There we go. Crew report. Sure. Because they're all the same in space near the moon. Alright, 575. Time to go home. So I need to add a maneuver. That is terrible. But it's only going to take me 197. Okay, come on. Okay, 9 million. So I can get 9 million. It isn't great, but at least it's low on delta V. Fortunately, getting into a much more polar orbit has not helped the return trajectory at all. So let's warp to the next. Oh, cannot want to warp. Warp to the next maneuver. It's a 4-second burn. I actually went past the node there, but it is what it is. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to warp to the sphere of influence margin, and then we're going to take a look at where we are. I'm certainly going to stop and gather this science, though. Just 1 minute here. Bob, gather your EVA report. Grab board. Okay. Warp me to the SOI margin. Okay, so let's see where we're going to end up. Periapsis of 8, apoapsis of 13. So, if I add, oops, forget about this, atmospheric pressure scan here, I can do another EVA report, and maybe reset some of these, collect data, restore. Take data. Take data from all of these while I'm out here. Can grab an EVA report. Reboard. Okay, that was a dupe. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are. Get rid of this maneuver node. So, periapsis of 9, apoapsis of 19. I want to add a maneuver to go retrograde there, and I'm hoping that I'm going to have enough delta V to pull this off. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have some to spare, in fact. So, probably want to be a little closer than that. That's about good. I don't want to come in at the breakneck pace I came in on last time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and warp to that maneuver. And we're doing this at the apoapsis, even though that's very long from now, because that's the most efficient place. And as you can see, we only have about 100 delta V to spare. So we're going to have to do this fairly efficiently. So let's warp to the next maneuver. It's going to be a short burn. And I'm not even going to bother waiting for exactly the node. I'm going to start burning right now. Watch my batteries, watch my batteries. Okay. So, let's bring that periapsis in. Now all we got to do is get inside the atmosphere, and it becomes inevitable that we're going to get to the ground. But that's about a good one. Okay, so I'm going to warp. I'm going to warp pretty close. In real life, Kerbals would be long dead, having run out of food. But this is video games, so actually I'm going to warp even closer. So where are we at? Perfect. So I'm going to flip us around retrograde. Use the rest of the fuel that I have to cut my orbital velocity, which is basically nothing. Goodbye, engines. Oh, and I'm going to hit him. Alright. Now we have so much science. I want Every bit of it. Don't care. Already pulled the experiments out of you. As long as my parachute survive. Oh boy. This is getting a little hairy. Again, coming in over the hand. This is really frustrating. So every experiment I had is basically blown off. I think they may have changed the atmosphere just slightly, because I used to be able to get away with having those experiments on there like that. And honestly, SAS, you're of no further use to me. So I'm just going to turn you off. Still tons of ablator left. No worries there. Just wait until it becomes safe to deploy our parachutes. Maybe I can try to coax this thing over to the sea. No, that's not going to happen. Well, most important thing is that we survived, and our science survived with us. So this has been a pretty successful mission so far. We orbited the moon. We picked up a bunch of those temperature surveys. Going to get a bunch of money for these completed contracts. We're going to get a ton of science once we land. All in all, that has been one of the more successful missions I have ever done. And I'm going to get to collect some science on the ground as well. That's fantastic. Get up. EVA report. Can I take a surface sample? No, I guess I can't do that. Come on, get back in. Oh, really? That's a bummer. Well, I'm not going to fuss it. I'll recover the vessel separately. So there's Bob. We've recovered Bob. Which is excellent. Then we're going to go into the tracking station and find our ship. It's the moon orbiter. And we're going to recover the moon orbiter. For 335 science. Now that is spectacular. Okay, well, I'm going to call it a stream at this point. Let's pick up this last milestone, return from orbit of the moon. And next time, we will start off by spending all of that science and seeing where else that can take us. So it's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will see you again next time.